Sales has always been easy for me. They helped me realize that sales is not easy for everybody. As I started to make money with my business and sales coaching practice, then I was able to step down into a different corporate role that was less stressful, less money, but less time as well. It gave me more time to do what I wanted to do. One of the biggest mistakes I see entrepreneurs making is they are unreasonable when it comes to their expectations of how quickly their business is going to grow. When you lack organization, when you lack a system, a structure of I'm going to do it this way, week in, week out, that's where the frustration and the overwhelm and the exhaustion sets in, and then you stop.
I started the show and I continue the show to bring valuable conversations to small business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, startups, and the like. Conversations about marketing, about networking, about business development, sales, finance, leadership, and all the things that go with running a business to try and move the needle away from the high failure rate that business owners experience, much higher than it needs to be if you take the time to learn the basics, learn the fundamentals, and learn from the guests that we bring on the show. It's incumbent upon the business owner who wants to be successful to find the information that's out there to learn. So we hope that the guests that you hear and the conversations we have are valuable and help you in your business and hopefully help us move the needle a little bit. If you have any suggestions, please write the show, introduce us to guests that we'll have on the show. How can you help us, though, continue to help you? First, please subscribe to the channel. The more subscribers we have, the more eyeballs we get, the more things we can bring to the show, the more resources we'll have to bring you quality content. Like us, if you listen to the audio version, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you follow our posts, if you see our posts, please share those posts, share the content, and link back to our law firm website, which helps us to continue our SEO marketing and grow our firm and help small business owners. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for being a listener, and I want to thank you for staying a listener. All right, Tracy. So thanks for joining me on this, what is a rainy afternoon in New Jersey. You said you're in Arkansas?
I am.
Yeah. So it's what, an hour behind me? It's like 3:10 here. So it's
Correct.
What, 2:10?
Yeah, we're an hour behind, and it's a beautiful sunny day here. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's not nice here, but it'll be nice next week. So thanks for joining me on a Friday. And why don't we start with like your background? Because you know, if anybody's watching this, they didn't hear the opening, but you're a former corporate person who was good at what you did.
Oh, yeah.
But got real disillusioned with what's going on and was like, I got to get out of here. And there are probably people listening who feel that way and got out, and others that felt that way are still stuck there. So maybe you can tell us your story and go backwards, and we'll get into all the stuff you're doing now.
Sure, absolutely. So I never saw myself being an entrepreneur because growing up, my father worked for himself, and I know that he was a workaholic. I know this, but he also made it look like a real grind, and
it is. Yeah.
It is. And it was also very feast or famine, which it can be, but for us, it was really feast or famine. And so it just didn't look glamorous. And I thought, I'm not doing that. And I was raised in the generation where you go to high school, you graduate, you go to college, you graduate, you get the job.
Yeah.
Any job, you're thankful for it.
That was our generation, right? Yeah.
You're supposed to stay there for 40 years and then you get a pension, a gold watch, a cake, a retirement party.
Yeah.
Well,
I think our vision of the entrepreneur in those days was like your grandfather's a shopkeeper.
Right.
And, you know, your mom ironed shirts in the back, and it's just not
exactly.
The world's changed, obviously, but that's kind of what we grew up with. Yeah, it was different in the world. Yeah,
like grandpa's a cobbler, and
right, exactly. You make shoes, and then mom does the books, and you know you struggle, and everyone else that is in corporate America make all the money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so I got the job, graduated, got the job, and I was planning to stay. I mean, I was going to be vice president of all things important. I mean, come on. But around 2005 is when things started to really shift in the country with corporations using words like right sizing, restructuring, downsizing, severance packages. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Nobody told me this was going to happen. Everybody was like, get the job.
Yeah. And it's all secure and you always have a job. It's not a problem. You do a good job and why they're not going to get rid of you.
I know. And so I called my mom. I was like, okay, you didn't tell me this was going to happen. What? And she's like, well, I didn't think it would happen either.
Right.
So then fast forward through that was my first taste that corporate was not as stable as it appeared.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
myth.
yeah, for sure. And then fast forward through a few toxic bosses, a few job descriptions that did not feel like the right fit. I knew that I knew I never had control over my time, because a corporate job is 8 to 5, 1 hour lunch. You get so much PTO, you get so much, whatever.
Yeah,
You don't have
right.
any control over your time, really. But I had been in a marketing and sales role for almost 25 years, 20 years in corporate, and then the last few years here. So
And what
over,
industry was all the sales stuff going on?
yeah. So I was in the banking real estate industry when I was in marketing, sales, business development.
Okay.
So got into banking and was in consumer lending, private banking, commercial lending, mortgage lending, and then moved over to the bank's title insurance company,
Sure.
because they had no market share here in our area. They had come in de novo, hung up a shingle, and didn't really have any presence.
Right.
So they hired me to come on to develop them, and I did. I mean, when I started with that title company, we had 6 employees in one small office. When I left, we had, oh gosh, I wanted to say probably 30 employees, three locations. But the final straw for me was the CEO of that title company.
Yeah.
I still cannot. This still does not make any sense to me. He actually had the nerve to tell me that he didn't think I was going to be as successful as I was, because I grew their market share 86% the first year I was there.
Okay.
And then I had him on track to grow, like, second year, like another 42 or something.
Right.
And he basically said he didn't think I was going to be that successful. He was shocked, and he felt like they were paying me too much money, and he was going to change the commission structure.
So in retrospect, because you did better
Yes.
than he thought you were going to do, he was going to pay you less going forward
Yes.
in order to what? Incentivize you to keep growing the company? Like,
Right.
how ridiculous is that?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not
Bless
the
his
first
heart.
story I've heard, by the way, stupid corporate
It,
decisions.
well, and here's the thing. Clearly, he doesn't know how to motivate a sales force.
Yeah.
I have a feeling something shady was happening with the books in the back, because
Right.
the more money I make for the company, the more
Right.
money I should make for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bless his heart, as we say in the South. And I, at that point, was like, okay, okay. I felt
Yeah.
like I had been bumping my head up against the swimming pool of corporate for a few years. And that was probably God and the universe throwing little rocks at me, going, you need to do something else. You need to do
Right.
something else. And then this just hit me like a brick. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But then I
Right.
thought, all right, Tracy, if you're not going to do corporate, what the heck are you going to do? Because
Right.
being an entrepreneur
It's not what you wanted to do.
doesn't look really good.
Right. But you just found out, though, that no matter how good you did and what you did, somebody else is still going to control your destiny. And it's
Yep.
usually somebody who's jealous. I was working for a big company when we lived in Ohio, and the salespeople, they get commissions, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the guys was very good. Maybe he was in the annuity department. Anyway, he would say he was the guy. I mean, everybody knew it.
Mm-hmm.
So he was making like more money than the CEO of the company. So
Oh,
they
man.
like capped out commissions for everybody. They said, listen, you can't earn more than this. But then by October, or September, he had made all that money. So they're like, well, why isn't he working? I said, because you're not paying him for anything.
Oh, my gosh.
And
I
he
know.
would stop working the last 3 months of the year. Eventually
Yeah.
left the company.
I
So it's just
don't blame
stupid.
him a bit. It is. It's
A lot of it's
ridiculous.
jealousy and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
all
You
right.
just
So
never
here you
know.
are. You got two
Mhm.
roads to go. One of which you don't want to stay on, the other one you don't want to go down on.
Right.
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 Okay.
Yeah. Standing at the fork in the road going, nope,
Yeah.
neither
Right.
side looks good right.
It's got to be another road. Okay.
Right. So at that point, I was in a women's mastermind, and the ladies in my group, my small group, knew me really well, and they knew what I was going through. And we were all working towards something in personal development, whether it was a better marriage or the next chapter of our life in
Oh,
corporate.
so it wasn't like a corporate executive women's group.
No,
It was a mixed group. Got
yeah,
it.
it was all women, and it was really focused on personal development, where
Mhm.
whatever you needed to work on in your particular life.
Right.
And so they knew that I was not happy. They knew I was disenchanted, and that I just didn't feel like I could trust who I was anybody that I was going to work for.
Of course, at this point, no way.
And they were like, "Well, okay." What they helped me see, first of all, sales has always been easy for me. And they helped me realize that sales is not easy for everybody. I just thought,
some people it just really clicks for,
yeah,
but most people it doesn't.
right. And I
That's the
didn't.
top performance. And they don't just like what, they figure out it fits them.
Right.
Yeah.
Had no idea. I'm like, they're like, you help people have always come to you for stuff. You've always been a
Yes.
coach, whether it's personal advice or professional advice. And then you help people build businesses. You're really good at it. People are always asking you, how did you gain market share? How did you grow that portfolio
Right.
so fast? How are you closing all these deals? I had a closing rate of 80 to 90%.
Yeah. It's high.
Um, and
Any industry, it's high. Yeah.
I was like,
But
well,
you didn't. Your reality was you didn't realize that was high. It was just, well, that's part of your success formula because
yeah,
you just didn't know any better. You're like, well, doesn't everybody close 80-90% of the deals? I mean,
I know.
yeah, but you're giving away all this stuff for free because you're not charging at the time. You're working in
Yeah.
corporate. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're like, you need to be a business and sales coach. And, I'm in Arkansas and we are a little slow on the trend
Okay.
sometimes. And I looked at them and I'm like, that's a thing. And they're like,
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, all righty then. So I
Right.
started doing some research and I decided to hit my warm market here. The people that knew me, that knew my success, that had been the ones that had been asking me, can
Right.
you help me build my business?
Well,
And
that's the best place to start, right?
yeah. So I got my feet wet doing that, working one to one, putting out a shingle. And I used a step down strategy for corporate because I couldn't just leave cold turkey. I was
Yeah.
making over six figures a year. My husband and I are dual income household. There was, I had agreed to so much into our retirement account to
Of
keep us
course.
on track for retirement, kids' college, cars, prom,
Yeah. The whole thing.
all
Yeah.
the stuff. And if I'd said to him, I'm going to make no money for a while, he would have been like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So which kid are we not going to feed
Right.
for the next 3 years? Yeah. I know.
Exactly.
I got 3 kids myself. It's the same thing. New
Exactly.
Jersey's more expensive than Arkansas. So.
Oh my gosh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was I looked at every bill that I was paying for our household
Okay.
and I trimmed the fat on as much as I could. Not necessarily stuff for the kids and my husband, but for me, like, do I really need to get my hair done that often? Do I really need to get my nails done? Do I really need to, you know what I mean? Some of that stuff that you have that I'm like, okay, I'm trimming the fat, getting serious
Right.
about
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
Then I knew my enough number.
Yeah.
What do I have to make to keep the lights on and make everybody happy? And myself too, because
Yeah.
I didn't want the
Right.
stress
That's
of
a
it.
good way to start for everybody.
Yeah. And so
Real budget and figure out how to bootstrap your way into this.
yeah,
Yeah.
as I started to make money with my business and sales coaching um, practice, then I was able to step down into a different corporate role that was less stressful, less money, but less time as
Without
well. That gave me more
without
time,
quitting.
yeah, to do what I wanted to do. And then as it continued to grow again, I was able to step down into the last role I had was in business development and production for a title insurance company, not the same one. But it was paying like half of what I was making 2 years before or a year before. And I was working, I was able to work from home. And
So you can kind of do
yeah,
things while you do their work or whatever. Get
yeah.
it all done.
And the manager that I went to work for, she knew my reputation. She knew that I was a producer and, all that. And she'd watched what I'd done in the industry. But I told her, I said, I will come to work for you, but I want you to understand when you look at me on social media, it is going to be Tracy Beavers coaching.
Right.
It is not going to be XYZ title company.
Right.
Now, I will get my work done. I will produce. I will grow and do this and hit the benchmarks you have for me. But I want you to understand I'm building this other business.
Right. And she obviously knew it wasn't long term with you. You're going to do
Correct.
fix their problem, get them off the ground, and then
Yeah.
hand them off to somebody else.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And she was so open-minded about it. It was a real blessing. She didn't care if I got my work done at 6 a.m. or 10 p.m.
Yeah.
She
She
just
focused
wanted
on
it done.
productivity. Right.
She just
Did you
wanted it
become a
done.
client eventually?
Did I?
Did she?
Oh, actually, yes.
Yes. And there you
Mhm.
go.
Yep.
Absolutely.
She did. And then one of her vice presidents in another region actually hired me on for a short time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for people listening, though, not everybody's in the, has that, I wouldn't call it a luxury, but has the opportunity
Mhm.
to transition.
Mhm.
Either they can't transition, they got to quit their job. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. Because nobody's going to let them step down from anything.
Right.
Or they were laid off or
Mhm.
what, they don't have a job. So they have
Right.
to kind of ramp up. But for the people that in there, don't think that you can't maybe ease your way into because,
Exactly.
it protects you from the trials and tribulations of getting started, because, you make money and then you lose a client, and it makes a big difference when you only have a few,
Yep.
and you build it up from there, and you don't have a network and so forth. So do you remember were your first clients not paying? I mean, I know some coaches that said, listen, I've done this, I've been successful, give me a chance, let me coach you. I won't
Mm-hmm.
charge you first. Let's see how we do. Did you have to do that, or no? Not that you
I
remember.
don't, I don't think that I did.
Okay.
Now my prices were really low.
Of
I
course.
laugh at,
Those would be
well,
low too. Yeah.
oh my
I
stars.
know. Yeah. Well, look, you come a long way, right? I mean, that's the whole goal. As you increase your exposure and the number of clients you're working with, and your time's more valuable,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I had a guy call me 10 years later after he had asked for, I guess it was wills or an agreement. And I told
mhm.
him what the price was. He goes, oh my God, when I talked to you last time, it was like a third of that. I go, well, you haven't talked to me for 10 years. What do you expect?
Inflation,
Yeah, I'm
people,
paying
come on.
higher prices too. I'm paying $12 for eggs now too, like everyone else.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so I wasn't giving it away for free, but I might as well have.
Right. Well, but people were taking a chance on you, right? You were
Yes,
successful in corporate. Doesn't mean you could coach them to,
correct.
although I think if you're good at what you do, it's really the question of the other person following what you're telling them to do
Mhm.
versus, something that you need to, some
Yeah,
magic formula you need to discover. Okay.
yeah.
So you started that out. So how
Mhm.
long did it take you? Do you remember where you really transitioned fully into your own business?
Yeah, it was about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, and that last title insurance company that I worked for, um, they closed the office. So,
After you left?
right, I was planning to, like, it was, gosh, I can't remember what year it was, but we were headed into Q4, and it was around November or so, and I was thinking to myself, by the end of Q1 of this next year, I'll make my way out. And then they announced like 30 days later that they were closing the office, and everybody was shocked. I mean, this is a national title, like a big
They
title
weren't going
insurance.
out of business. They were closing this office.
That particular office, yeah,
They're
was
like, well,
so
Tracy's not going to be here anymore. We're going to go out of business, and we're going to shut the office.
right. I don't think
Right.
that was it, but thank you,
Oh,
Mitch.
you lose a lot of friends that way. Yeah. Okay. So, well,
Yeah,
timing is everything, right? So,
yeah, but I mean, it was sooner than I planned on, and it wasn't my
yeah.
choice, which was really kind of scary. But the nice thing again is I'm a planner, so not only did I shave my expenses, right, and was running really lean, but I was also squirreling away every dollar I made in my coaching business. So by the time that happened, if I had not brought in another dime for like 8 months, I would have been fine.
Yeah. So there was still a gap between your income before
Correct.
and your income totally on the business, but you were
Correct.
filling that gap because you had been saving for the future.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And I told my husband, I said, I know this is scary. This is not what we planned on. And he was like, you've proven that you are successful at this. You've proven that people will hire you. Why don't we just? He said, let's see where you are in 6 months. And in my head, I went, oh, challenge accepted, sir.
Yeah. There you go. You're good at
Okay.
that.
Yeah. I just smiled at him and said, okay, sounds good. And in my head, I was like, oh, it
Yeah.
is on.
Well, now you got full time to
Yeah.
focus on the business development of the
Exactly.
business, your
And I'll
business.
tell you, in my second full year of
Hmm.
building this business, I blew past six figures.
Oh, yeah. So,
But it was because I was able to be fully intentional and present. And I
well,
didn't
that's the
have,
thing. Like, you can't really do it part time forever. You're never going to get off the ground.
well, that the one thing that I didn't realize was when the corporate job was gone, it was like this weight was off me. So, from a mental energy drain standpoint,
Right.
that was the byproduct I wasn't expecting.
Right. Yeah,
And that
because your
was,
brain now, that whatever you're using your brain for your job
mhm,
is gone.
yeah.
So you have all the creative time and thinking and,
Mhm,
go and do and whatever. You can plan your day accordingly to whatever you
yeah.
wanted to do.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So how did you continue to grow? So you always go to your natural market, right? You talk to the 10
Mhm,
people and whatever. And then
mhm.
what was the let's call it prospecting, marketing, business development strategy
Mhm.
when you hit the street and said, okay, well, now I need another 30 clients or whatever?
Yeah, it
What'd you
was
do?
all based on making connections here in the local market and networking. Another part of my income. this was a great surprise. I was asked by the University of Arkansas here
Hmm.
in Little Rock. They have a small business technology development center. Every state has one. They're
Hmm.
located at universities generally. And they needed consultants to come on board because they had had an influx of people wanting to start businesses or get to second stage growth or what have you. There was the clients that I got to work with ran the gamut from I've got this awesome idea but I have no idea what to do with it to $1 million companies that were going into they really wanted to get into the second phase of growth, and then the pandemic hit
Yeah.
and people were really wanting to build businesses. And
Yeah.
so I
That's
was
really
able to
changed.
be a consultant. So part of my income in that year and a half period was part of it was from my private coaching myself with my clients.
Hmm.
And then part of it was them asking me to work with the clients that needed the marketing and sales, the things that were in my
So it was
wheelhouse.
a kind of combination between an incubator and an accelerator, depending on
Hmm.
which company was there and what
Yeah.
stage they were at. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for students. It was for people in the community who wanted to
Hmm.
use their resources to
Yeah.
grow and so forth.
Small business owners in Arkansas. Yes.
Got it.
Hmm.
That's Razorbacks, right? University
Yeah.
of
Go
Arkansas.
Hogs.
There you go. I have a Hoosier, I have a Terrapin, and my daughter's a Wildcat at Arizona. And
That's
my
so
wife
fun.
went to Florida State. So, yeah,
Y'all
it's
have a mixed bag.
Seminoles. Yeah. I went to Cornell. I tell them I went for an education, not for fun. So,
Yeah, I
um,
went to Tulsa University. We had a football team, but we were not that great.
no,
So,
no.
no.
Okay. So we won't get into that. So let's talk more about, well, first, before we get into like, the way you help other people and the things you see them do wrong, we'll do that in the second half. Let's talk about like, what were the challenges of now you running your own business versus, you were in sales and marketing, but you weren't running these companies. That wasn't what you were doing. So what did you find to be challenging now that you're, chief and bottle washer at the same time?
Yeah. Um, that was an eye-opening experience because when you go to corporate, gosh, you get everything. You get the business cards, the name tag, the phone, the computer, the desk, the parking spot, the job description, the benchmarks, the paycheck. I
Yeah.
mean, all of it.
Just shows up, right? You
You
pick out
just
your
show
furniture,
up
you're good to go, right? Yeah.
and you're told what is expected of you and you go do it.
Right.
And so I remember I was sitting here in the kitchen and I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. Not
Um,
reporting to anybody.
if I want a business card, I'm going to have to go get some. If I want a name tag, I'm going to have to go get that.
Yeah.
Nobody's here to tell me anything. I mean, I'm like,
Right.
woo, okay. So part of
Yeah.
me was like,
That's good and bad, right?
woohoo. And then part of me was like, oh, damn.
Yeah. Only the disciplined people survive. You got.
Exactly. So I will say that I approached this, building this business exactly as a corporate job.
Okay.
Keeping the same hours as much as possible, primarily because that's what worked for our family. Our kids were in high school and middle school at the time. My husband went to work every day. One of the hardest parts, though, was helping the family understand that just because mom works from home
Right. That's
and
a
for
big problem.
herself
Yeah. That's a pandemic problem too. People.
doesn't mean that mom's going to bring you Chick-fil-A lunch
Yeah.
because you don't feel like eating what's in the school
Right.
cafeteria.
Yeah. If mom's in the office, she's not home. Like that's
Exactly.
the way you
And
got to
then,
act.
and my sweet husband, I'll never forget that he only did this once. The termite guy shows up for the termite bug and pest control inspection. I am on Zoom with a client.
Now he's working home too.
No, my husband's at work. He's at the
Oh, he's
office.
not at the house. Okay.
No, I'm the only one at the house. But
Right.
everybody seems to think because I'm the one at the house,
Can you answer the door? There's a package on the porch. Yeah,
I
I used to
can,
get that.
I can let the termite guy in. I
Right.
can, the plumber's come in to fix the toilet. Okay, and I'm like, look,
Yeah. I'm not here.
exactly.
Yeah.
Pretend I am not here.
Right.
Pretend. So they finally began to understand that unless they were broken, bleeding, or on fire, that I have a job and I have a business I'm running. And sometimes it was more hours, and it's not more hours now than when I was working in
Right.
corporate.
Because you built an infrastructure and support and
Correct.
stuff. But when you start, it is a
It was
full-time 24-hour-a-day job because you're always thinking about it if you're not working. You
correct.
probably still do that. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh God, what am I doing tomorrow?
Mhm.
Now, what do you have? You have a personal assistant to help you and
I
run
do.
things. So
I do.
how long did you wait and suffer and do things yourself before you hired somebody? Did you do it right from the get go, or did you?
Good question.
Yeah,
No, I suffered along for a couple of years.
yeah,
I'm trying to remember exactly. I did hire my first assistant before I could truly afford it on paper. And that was a little scary, but definitely worth it. What amazed me again was the freeing up of the brain space.
sure,
That was a byproduct I wasn't expecting.
right, of course.
And so now I have an assistant who helps me
Okay.
with my social media, my free Facebook group, um, my alumni mastermind, things like that. And then I have a project launch manager. We launch my 8-week group coaching program 3 times a year. And so she takes care of the nuts and bolts of plugging all the emails in and the masterclass reminders and all that jazz. And I have an outreach specialist that helps me specifically during launch periods as well. And my son is my podcast manager.
Oh, okay, there you go. Right, because you
Yeah.
have a show, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
got to put content out there and talk,
Yep.
and here you are on my show. Yeah, so you've really built. It's not that you're just coaching people. I mean, you've built products and
Hmm.
and offerings, and
Hmm.
because not everybody does that, but I think it's
Yeah.
because you need different streams of income, and you need to have different things going on at different times, and different things
Yeah.
work for different people. They want to be in a group, they don't want to be in a group,
Hmm.
they want to be in a mastermind,
Yep.
move up to the next
Exactly.
level, right? Now, do you
Exactly.
do? Is everything local, or are you doing stuff on Zoom and
Hmm.
online and
Yeah. It's actually nothing's local now.
Oh, okay,
Much to my chagrin, when I began to raise my prices and get more into the online space, I realized people here in Arkansas, they either don't understand the power of coaching or they're just not willing to pay for it.
right,
And so I completely removed myself from the local market. And
interesting.
I'm
Okay,
global, online and
yeah,
global. So I have clients all over the world, which is really exciting. Um, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
No, because it definitely expands. You're right, because you go into the bigger urban areas, you're going to get more corporate people, more people that are
mhm.
because you're right. The best entrepreneurs I know, business owners, they all have coaches.
Yeah.
I know coaches that have coaches. They,
Well, professional
yeah,
athletes. I mean,
absolutely,
for goodness sake,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. People think like Michael Jordan just picked up a basketball and he can play that way.
Right.
He didn't practice or anything like that.
Right.
All right. So why don't we do this? Let's take a break for commercials, a few minutes,
Okay.
and then let's come back and talk about, what do you see that people do wrong? What are the things
Hmm.
that you're correcting? What do they do right? What makes them more successful than other people? Because that's always a good science experiment when we talk about that, because everybody has a different opinion of what makes success and what works for people. And you're doing a lot
Sure.
of online stuff with people. So
Yeah.
in that community. All right, let me mute you and we'll take a little commercial break. Hold on.
All right.
I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Evenue. It's the all-in-one platform for small businesses. So maybe you're getting your calendaring from one software and you're invoicing from another, and you are marketing through another one, running your email system and all those types of things, docu-signing, documents. Evenue is a platform that we use as one of our sponsors to run our entire business. So we take all those tools and it merges them all into one. And there's other features like auto payments and integrations with QuickBooks, social media marketing management, and funnels that'll really allow you to run your whole business. So if you want to learn more about those tools that we use, visit evenue.com, EVONUE.com to learn more. There's also a link in the show notes. And be sure to tell them that the Accidental Entrepreneur referred you. This podcast is brought to you by our affiliate sponsor, iEmployee. iEmployee is a virtual assistant service that hires almost anyone for any role in your company right out of the Philippines. Most roles range from $7 to $9 an hour for highly skilled and experienced VAs. And whether you need an executive assistant, social media manager, video editor, customer service, sales, you name it, they have it. We use iEmployee for our VA services, from editing and promoting the podcast to all the PR and promotion of our law firm. iEmployee acts as a virtual field supervisor on the back end with live video monitoring and reports on a daily basis with screenshots of your VA's workday, and along with complete HR and payroll duties. No more paying for overpriced and underqualified workers. There's a link in the show notes to get a 1-week free trial, and I encourage you to take advantage of it. All right, so we're back. I gotta change some of the sponsors, actually, because Tab's no longer a sponsor, but I am an advocate of having not only coaches but like advisory people, mentors, people that can sitting on a meeting for a business and if you can have an advisory board, great, if you're big enough, but big advocate of that kind of stuff. So maybe we want to start there. Like, what's the few things when you come in working with somebody that you see that they're doing wrong? Because I would assume more often you're brought into somebody who's got a business and they're looking to go to another level. They're not startups, because startups have other problems like no money. That's one of their problems. So,
Right.
yeah. So what would you say in terms of your experience?
One of the biggest mistakes I see entrepreneurs making is they are unreasonable when it comes to their expectations of how quickly their business is going to grow.
Yeah, that's going to take longer and more work, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, in the online space, this is something that really gets my goat. People think they can come in and build an online business for free.
Right. E-commerce, Amazon, whatever.
Passive
right?
income, work 5 hours a week, you're going to have $1 million. No.
Well,
That
because
is
they see those videos on YouTube that tell them that, they give them a formula. Here's what you put into Chat GPT, and then you do this, and you'll be making, 10,000 an hour. Yeah.
Right. Nope. That's not the truth.
Right.
And so they lack consistency. They lack a marketing plan that allows them to be consistent, and they lack patience. So the marketing plan is essential, because if you want to be highly visible on social media, you have to do what the platform wants you to do in all the forms it wants you to do it in order to get the algorithm in favor. And there's a method that I teach that helped me create weekly content, week in, week out, with consistency, building alongside that corporate job and those 2 kids and husband and all the things that I teach now. And it's essentially creating one piece of content for the week, and then everything else you need for social media, for your email list, all that comes off of that one piece that you create. Okay. So, when they come to me, a lot of times they're creating stuff, they're throwing it out
They
there.
don't have a sustainable system. They're just all over the place.
Exactly. There's not any organization to it. And when you lack organization, when you lack a system, a structure of I'm going to do it this way, week in, week out, that's where the frustration and the overwhelm and the exhaustion sets in. And then you stop. Like, I see this a lot. They get really excited about being on Facebook. And they're like, I'm going to post 7 days a week on Facebook. It's going to be amazing.
You're like, you'll be burned out in a week.
Yeah. Well, they might last 3 weeks, and then they're exhausted, and they're
like, I
laying on the
can't do
floor
this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And so they stop.
Right.
And they catch their breath, and 3 weeks later, here they come again. And that
Which
is
not
the
worst thing, right? Because you don't get any consistency with your campaigns.
No.
You got to have consistent content going out there. I think
Correct.
Earlier I was talking to a guy, he's a branding guy. We were talking about clarity was the word. I think the word in this podcast is sustainable systems. Like you have to set up things. I did this with a podcast very early on. I said, if I don't create the methodology and the layout that I do every single time,
right,
I'll never do this. Like I'll burn out after 8 episodes. So I did that very early on, and here I am 400. But because you see that people just drop things, and you're right, they get too gung ho. They're probably the people that sign up for the gym. They say, I'm going to get back in shape. I'm going every day, every week, right?
Right.
And a month later, they're not going anymore.
I'm going at 4 a.m. every day.
Exactly.
Even on Sunday.
Falling out of their head by at nighttime. You know, that feast or famine is not a healthy way to go.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, that's good. So how do you kind of get people past that? Just telling them is not enough.
No, I help them roadmap a system that they can use.
Right.
Week in, week out. I literally lay out their action steps and the other thing I look at is their time management skills for the week.
Right.
Because again, like we talked about, to be successful as an online entrepreneur, you have to treat it as if it is a corporate 8 to 5 job.
Right.
I mean, my opinion, unpopular opinion, but that's the truth.
Right.
You can't wake up at 10 o'clock, work for 4 hours, and, then go, it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
And so I want to look at how are they spending their time? Are they set up structurally from a time management standpoint to have the white space needed to create the content in the first place?
Right. Exactly.
One of the mistakes I made in the beginning was I was allowing my clients to pick the date and time they wanted to meet with me.
Yeah, no, I
because
learned
I was
that early on too. Yeah.
trying to be accommodating, and
Right.
I couldn't figure out why I felt like a ping pong ball. But it
Yeah.
was because I would have a meeting with somebody, and then I'd have an hour in between. Then I'd have a
Right.
meeting with somebody and an hour in between. And I was never able to really get into the headspace needed to create the content, to get it out in the world, to engage. That's the other thing. Engage on social. We can't just post stuff
Right.
and expect people that are going to,
Right. No, you
find
have to
us.
engage with them. Right.
It's called social media for a
Right.
reason. We've got to have interactions and conversations. So I look at, the structures that they've got. Do they have the systems in place to be successful, to set themselves up for success? And
Yeah.
do they have boundaries
Right.
with not only their clients, but with their family?
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know?
And I think that once you work that hard and you set up the systems and things are going well, you do start to recapture,
Yes.
time. Like,
Yes.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't usually get in the office till 10:30 because I go to the gym, which
Yes.
is part of my health. But I use, I learned during the pandemic about these electronic calendars, and I use links that I send to people. I say,
Hmm.
here, pick any time you want. But the link is set to do it at certain times with
Exactly.
certain buffers and things like that. Because then, yeah, you're right. I can't, then I schedule in time to do the marketing, to do
Hmm.
stuff like that. But there is a light to the end of the tunnel when you put the time in and you really build things and things are systemized.
Hmm.
That's why you do it,
Yeah.
because if not, you're never going to recapture.
Right.
I
Right.
think your point also about engagement, it's something I was talking about earlier with somebody. It's like, when we go to networking events, if you went
Hmm.
to a networking event and stood there when they announce everybody in the group
Hmm.
and you say, hi, I'm Mitch Beinack, I'm an attorney, whatever, and then just walked out of the room,
Yeah.
you're not going to meet anybody. Like
No.
nothing's good. You got to follow up. You got to say hi. You got to introduce yourself, get their business card, have coffee with them. It's the same thing in social
It
media.
is.
You can't say, Tracy, I've been posting every day for a month and nothing's happening.
Right.
Well, that's because you're not doing anything else.
Exactly. You're not pulling people off the online space onto your email list where you can
Right.
have a conversation with them, and
Exactly.
you're not getting into the DMs and having conversations with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they see you're actually a person and you have things to say and wow, that
Mhm.
was helpful. And
Right.
then they start to like say, you know what, I think I relate to Tracy. And I think what she has to
Mhm.
tell me is good. Because look, there's a lot of, it's just like financial advisors. Everyone's a financial advisor and everyone's a coach. Some train, some not, some
Right.
all kinds of different kind of coaches, whatever. It is hard to find the right person, like a
Mhm.
therapist, right?
Mhm.
That you sync with, that you like how they think and how they work. And look, maybe other people don't want to listen to you and work as hard as they should and believe that it's going to be, hard. It is hard, by the way, anybody listening. You as an entrepreneur, I think you work much harder than you do at a company, because your company, you go
For
9 to 5,
sure.
you don't carry it home with you and whatever.
Right.
You think about your job and your future and your opportunities and your worries and that, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's not a
Mhm.
day that goes by where I don't think about even the weekends. I'm thinking about what do I got to do Monday,
Yeah.
you
For
know?
sure. Yeah. Even on vacation, I will work a little
Yeah.
bit every morning while when nobody's doing anything.
Right.
We're not doing anything. I'm not missing anything.
Right.
John's at the gym and the kids are sleeping. I'm like,
Right.
well, okay, I'll get up and check my messages and send an
Yeah, because
email.
if
And
not, you're going to come back and your life's going to be a living hell for the next 3 weeks as you're trying to catch up on the 400 emails that are sitting in your inbox.
yep,
I did that. We were on a cruise and I said, listen, we're going on this cruise. I got to get the internet package. Like I
yeah,
have to be tied to the office. And it was
hmm,
just me at the time anyway. And, be able to just kind of weed through things. So I don't, so I do feel good when I get back from vacation, not
exactly,
like, oh God, here we go. So I
right,
did used to do that. I used to come back and be just terrible.
yeah,
Terrible,
yeah,
terrible, terrible.
totally agree.
Okay. So when so tell me some of the other things that you see that people are doing
Hmm.
wrong. Like what, because I know you do a lot of business development, you help people with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Why are their sales off? It can't just be because they're not managing their calendar well.
right. A lot of times, I heard this said a couple weeks ago, and it's really true. Most people don't have a leads problem;
Uh-huh.
they have a follow up problem.
Okay, that's a good. So they have enough like inquiries coming in,
Hmm.
but
They're
they're not
not.
like, yeah.
They're yeah. They're not being effective on the info call, on the sales call,
Okay.
helping the potential client uncover their own gaps. I generally don't have to tell you what's wrong with your business when we work through the framework that I have for my information calls. Because by the questions that I ask you and the way I structure them, you're going to uncover your own gaps and your own weaknesses.
The discovery process. Yeah.
Correct. So
Right.
by the time we get to the end, you're already like, oh my gosh, this is worse than I thought. Of course, I'm going to hire you, you know?
Yeah.
But
So
then
not a good sales process and not a good closing process.
correct. And then, the other thing they do is they don't follow up.
Right.
I One of the things that made me successful is I will follow up with you until you tell me to, you know, go to where, get off my lawn, or your social security number expires.
Yeah. Well, that would be death, I guess. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you pass away, then I'll stop following up with you. But
Right.
otherwise, I'm going to.
Okay. Well, that's fair, right? I've said that to people. Listen, do you want me to take you off the list? Do you want me to keep
Yeah.
following up with you? And by the way, another system, right? So
Mhm.
there are ways to systematize your follow up. You don't
Exactly.
have to be like going through, my God, who didn't I call today? And you're looking through your page, and that'll
Yep.
never work. So yeah, and there's even ways to do some of it automated where you can
Mhm.
send them an email and say, hey, listen, I'm still here.
Right.
If you want to do this, just tell me no.
Right.
And there are people I think that respond, at least to me, and say, no, 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 we've just been overwhelmed. We're
Exactly.
getting I would say 9 times out of 10, that's true. It's not that people are
It
just
is.
blowing you off. They don't want to do it.
Right.
There are some people that say, no, we found another lawyer or we decided not to do it for now. Great. Just, don't take up my headspace doing it. But
Cool. I
yeah,
would rather hear a no
yeah.
than a nothing.
Yeah. Well,
But
how
if
many?
but if I don't hear anything, I'm going to be like, well, they're
Right.
still on my list.
Right. Of course, because they didn't say anything, but you followed up with them. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people think they got all these leads. They're still in business, but they're just names on a page, and all these people
Mhm.
are doing business with other people.
Yep.
That was very common when I was in the insurance business working. I did a lot of support work. I had to sell myself because I was a kid.
Mhm.
Couldn't nobody wanted to me to do their will. And I was 25 years old, so was doing whatever I had to do. And
Yeah.
you would feel like you had all these names to call, that you were somehow busy, but
Mhm.
you don't. They're just names on a piece of paper, until
Yeah.
you really reach out to them and make a connection.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're dealing with a lot of like e-commerce online businesses, right? They're selling
Mhm.
online, right? Which is
Correct.
harder to do in terms of follow up, right? I mean, people are so insulated these days.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be creative with it. So, in terms of e-commerce, I don't help a lot of businesses that sell product
Okay.
online, more services.
Ah,
So,
okay.
coaches, course creators, consultants who have
Got it.
maybe they sell one-to-one packages, or they have a group coaching program, or an online course, or a membership, or something like that. And you have to get creative with the ways that you reach out to people, the ways you make the connections, and you have to use the DMs. And it's just what I try to help my clients and students understand, the follow-up process, the connecting, building the relationship process is the same in the online space as it is when I was in person. It's the location of the conversation that has changed. And
Makes
because the
sense.
location has changed from being in person to being online, that's where the brain goes, oh, this conversation must be different if it's online because it's a different location. No, it's the same conversation.
Right.
So just talk to me like you and I are sitting there having coffee. We're just doing it in the DMs of Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram.
Right.
But the conversation's the same. I'm
Yeah.
still getting to know you. You're getting to know me. We're figuring out, could we be a potential client for each other? Could we be a collaboration partner like we're doing right now with the podcast?
Right.
Could we be referral sources for each other?
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason why you connect with other people and try to build that relationship, because they're going to fit into your business somewhere.
Right.
We just have to figure out where.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I always look at it as a networking opportunity. If I'm not
Yeah,
going to do business with them,
for
I
sure.
can probably send them business sometime, or they're going to meet somebody and, be an advocate
Correct.
for what I do and whatever.
Yep.
So a lot of these people, well, like they're doing content course creation and stuff. Are they doing like on websites like Udemy and things like that? Or
Mhm.
they're doing their own stuff or?
Yeah, not necessarily Udemy, but most of the course platforms that I see people using are white labeled off of Go High Level,
Showing
um,
up at a high level. Yeah.
Kajabi, and then Thinkific, Podia, Teachable, those platforms.
Got it. Got it. Got it. But you're not helping them design. Are you helping them design the courses too? Or no,
No.
these are people that are, no, you're just helping them with the the
Marketing.
marketing and the building. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
No,
yeah. No,
so
tech is not my love language, Mitch.
yeah, no.
No, I'm not your design girl. I'm not your I have to hire that out for
Yeah.
myself.
You actually help people write business plans, but only the marketing piece. Like I always look at it as like there's four pieces, right? There's your product or service, in this case,
Mhm.
services, right? There's your people. I mean, it's
Mhm.
you, and it's usually shouldn't just be you. So who else should be involved? Then
Mhm.
there's the financial side, but nobody ever wants to look at, which is their
Right.
biggest downfall, right? They're losing money and they have no idea. They
Right.
don't want to know.
Right.
And then there's the marketing. What's
Yeah.
your marketplace look like? How are you going to reach it? How are you going to
Mhm.
market? What's the strategic plan?
Mhm.
I think people don't realize that you don't write a business plan. I mean, you should write a business plan if you're thinking about starting a business, but it doesn't then just go on the shelf
Right.
and you never look at it again. It's going to become separate things. And one of them
Mhm.
is your marketing, plan.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I do help them with their offer creation,
Okay.
pricing, structure, format,
Yeah.
things like that. It pretty much. So what I help with, I don't get into legal, I don't get
Okay.
into accounting
Right.
or tech.
Yeah.
Anything else, I can help you.
Right. But you can probably refer them to people. I mean, you have a network of
Absolutely.
people like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I don't. It's a lot of things. People say that. Well, will you help me write a business plan? I said, absolutely not. First of all, you should be writing most of it yourself, but I can refer you to people that will help you do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I do the legal stuff. So,
Yeah.
okay. Do you have, without like giving away information that's
Mhm.
private, like some success stories that you're proud of where, you got
Mhm.
involved with somebody and they're really struggling and it really turned around
Yeah.
because
So
they listened to you because they did the things that you told them that they should do?
one of my clients, when I first met her, she is a long arm quilter.
What is it? You got to explain that.
A long arm meaning a big, like the big quilting machine, and you'll see them
Okay.
do the embroidery thing
Yeah.
like over the top of the deal. And she had been doing that in her home for years. Her husband had lost his job. They had not been saving for retirement, and they're around my same age.
Okay.
And so she was really concerned.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to teach people how to quilt in
Okay.
the online space. So I helped her develop a course, um, a YouTube channel, marketing, all the things. 18 months later, she hit six figures.
Nice.
Yeah, and now she's gone on to, I think now overall she's at, I think like a $500,000 now
Wow.
over the past few years.
Just by teaching people online how
Hmm.
to quilt and they just sign up for her course or buy
Yep.
her materials or books or whatever she's doing.
Yep. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Another gal helps caregivers who have a family member or a loved one that's been diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Okay.
And she got into this space because her husband had Parkinson's and she was his caregiver. And she didn't want people to go through what she went through. So she wrote a book,
Okay.
and she wanted to create an online course. When she came into my 8-week group coaching program, she had an offer she had written up for a $97 mini course, like with the basics of what they need to do.
Okay.
And she said, well, nobody's buying it. And I said, well, have you marketed it on social media? She's like, oh, I did once a couple weeks ago. I said, have you emailed your list about it? She goes, not really.
Well, what did
I
she
said,
think people were going to do? Just find her and sign up?
that's another mistake I see people
Like
making.
people really think that? Like they'll put a course online, they'll figure, well, somebody must find this and I'll make some money?
Yeah, because there's a lot of marketers out there that if you build it, they will come. No,
I mean, there's so much noise out there.
yeah,
Nobody's
that's
going to,
not true.
yeah,
So
right.
I said to her, I said, okay, this was like on a Tuesday. I said, all right, by Friday, I want you to have posted this thing 3 times on social media, and I want you to have emailed your list at least once.
Okay.
$2,500 later,
Nice. Just from that little,
just from that little bit.
how many people were on her email list? Do you remember when
Gosh,
she
now
started?
she did have a pretty good size list. I will say that, and she did have a social media audience.
Yeah.
So don't mistake me that you can just go, market to 5 people and
No,
make
you got to build an
$2,500
audience. But she had built the audience. She
for
had built
sure.
the email list, which is what
Uh-huh.
everybody, and she wasn't doing anything with it.
No, they had no idea what she
That
had.
amazes me. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
people can't buy what they can't see. They
Right.
can't sign up for your free lead magnet if you don't promote it.
Right. Yeah.
They can't listen to your podcast if you don't talk about it. Let me think. I've had students that have come in the 8 weeks together. One of my students we just wrapped up the 8-week round, and she had a 500% increase in her email list size. So that was
Nice.
really
So
exciting.
that's a key because
Yeah.
keeping in touch with one of my favorite books is a book called the referral of a lifetime. And it's
Oh
all
yeah, it's a
about,
good
you've
one.
read that book?
Yeah, that's a good
Great
one.
book about keeping in touch.
Uh-huh.
When I first read it, we didn't have email. You had to like send postcards and,
Right.
and it was hard to do. And
Yeah.
now there's no reason why you shouldn't be keeping in touch with people. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, people have to know you're like alive and you're
Yeah.
there and you're
Yeah.
offering things. I met
And
somebody recently that had 120,000 people on their list or
mhm,
following or Facebook, I don't know, whatever it was.
mhm.
And they're like, how do we monetize this? I said, well, if you come up with an offering that people will keep with you for 99 cents a month, that's 180 grand a month. I'm like, yeah, I didn't think about that,
Yeah. I know.
So,
There's a gal I know, Liz Wilcox. She's amazing with email marketing. She has a $9 membership, $9 a month
okay,
for
okay.
her membership. She makes, yeah, I don't even know how much
Yeah, a
money.
lot of money, right?
Yeah. Like,
Because she's offering good content. People want the thing.
oh,
And for somebody to
yeah.
invest, 19.99 a month, 9.99 a month, whatever,
Mhm.
and it's a business expense,
Yeah.
$99, maybe they're going to think about it. But
Yeah.
$10 a
Well,
month,
and
it's really $120 a year, but it
her
doesn't feel that way.
content her content is amazing, and she
Yeah,
is
no doubt.
really good at what she does.
Yeah, that's what matters.
And she's a really good person too, so it makes it easy to sign up for something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we've had people double the membership in their free Facebook group, um, more followers on YouTube. I mean, once you start doing the work and you put the strategies in place that I teach, your
yeah,
leads and your list growth start to come in automatically every day
right.
in the background of your business. And all you have to do is focus on the strategy. You don't have to think about people ask me, how many hours a week do you spend on list growth, Tracy? And I'm like, I don't think about that.
Yeah, what are you buying names? I mean, what are you?
No, I don't think
No,
about the list
I
growth.
don't do that
I
either.
think about doing the strategies every day that gain me visibility and that pull people to me with attraction marketing onto my list.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now, see, so in my world, because I have an electronic calendar now, everybody who signs up for an appointment, their name goes on the list.
Mhm.
The list sends them whatever, I don't know, 6 weeks of information about my firm, and then they're on
Yep.
the main list. If I go to a networking event, I
Mhm.
put the cards in. I tell them an email, hey, we're adding it to the list. You can unsubscribe at any time,
Yeah.
whatever. And and it's not. It's just part of my business development thing,
Mhm.
which I'm trying to automate a little bit more. But yeah, I think that people really don't realize the power of keeping in touch. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, do you know somebody who does this? And I'm like, I spoke to an attorney who does that, and I can't for the life of me remember the guy's name because he
Mhm.
never marketed to me or sent me a notice or anything again.
Yep.
Even
Crazy.
if it's an email, at least, I mean, a newsletter, at least I don't have to read your newsletter to know that Tracy's still out there. If it shows up in my inbox,
Right.
Tracy Beavers Consulting.
Exactly.
And if they want us, I once somebody once said, "Oh, you send out too many emails." I'm like, once a week. Like, yeah, I was like, unsubscribe. What do you want me to tell you?
Right.
I know you're there. I'm like, all right, whatever. I can't please everybody.
Right. No, you definitely can't. And the people
But
that unsubscribe, you just have to bless and release them.
yeah, that's fine. I don't care. What is your I wonder if you have an opinion about this. Like, you hear a lot about stuff about, how often you should post, how often you should send an email. What's in,
Mhm.
because I literally have attorneys that say, oh, no, if I send something more than once a month, my clients won't, they're just going to be aggravated. I'm like, well, you're kidding me. Like,
It depends on
okay,
what you're sending them.
I guess, but if they don't hear from you for a month, they might think you went to another firm. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, it
So
is.
what's your opinion about that kind of stuff?
I think it really depends on your audience and it
That's
depends
true.
on the business model. So, because I mean, I don't know about you, but Bath and Body Works sends me 3 emails a day.
Yeah, I've unsubscribed to that one. That was too much.
That's a lot.
If I get more than one every couple of days, it's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the space that I'm in, I recommend once a week emailing your list. But here's the thing. If I have a new person who's just starting out and they say to me, Tracy, I have no idea what I would say once a week for the rest of my life.
Right.
And
That's how they look at it. That's the
I,
problem, right?
well, but that's how they should look at it though. Whatever we start with, we
Yeah,
need to
good point.
stick with.
Because
And
sustainability has not sustainability. What's the word?
consistency.
Consistency, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
has a
And
big impact.
so if they say, okay, I don't think I can do that. Okay, cool. How could you do every other week? Could we do
Yeah,
twice a month? Oh, I don't know about that. All right, fine. I want you to start with once a month, but stick with it.
right,
Because the problem is, again, they come out of the gate once a week and
right,
then they run out of stuff to say and they don't email their list for 6 months and then they email them again and those people can't remember who they are and they unsubscribe.
right.
So I would almost rather somebody do once a month and make
Yeah,
it really, really good.
Yeah.
and then work their way up.
Yeah, because if they start seeing results and
Yeah.
good response, they get more excited about it and they're more,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. You want to watch your open rates. Industry standard for us, you want a 40% or higher open rate. You want your click through rates to be high. A 2 to 3% click through rate is still really good. So, you just have to watch your analytics and see, but ask your audience, what do they want to hear?
Right.
And find fun ways to get them to reply back. That helps your email deliverability.
Mm-hmm.
And keeps you out of the spam folder is if you can find fun ways to get them to reply back. And sometimes it is the silliest stuff. Like I was writing to my list because my email on Tuesday is, hey, Mitch, this is what I'm going to talk about live on Thursday. Come join me.
Okay. All right.
And so I basically repurposed that live into an email.
So
Then
after the Thursday, it becomes another email.
On Friday, it's, hey, did you miss it? Here's the replay.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah. So on Tuesday, I was talking about what I'm going to talk about live on Thursday, and it was sales.
Okay.
And I said something about sales makes everybody cringe. Ask me how I know as a junior high kid going door to door to sell band candy. And at the end of the email, I said something about reply back and tell me what was the weirdest thing you had to sell as a kid for a school fundraiser.
Right.
I got more.
It's the Jimmy Fallon hashtag exercise.
Yeah.
You were trending in your group.
Yeah. It was hysterical. Some of their answers were hysterical.
Yeah, because that was like the worst thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
Was go door to door and ask people to buy candy for your band.
Yeah. Or gift wrap, or like one gal said they sold pizzas that they actually handmade in the school cafeteria. She's like, I have no idea how many health code violations we have.
Oh yeah, probably in those days they didn't have any health code. They didn't have health codes in those days. You could do everything.
Yeah. So find fun ways to engage with your audience. That's the thing. That's going to keep them. Not only are you landing in their inbox, which is great, but that's going to keep them connected to you.
Yeah.
And when they reply back, you reply back. Hey, Mitch, so great to hear from you. Happy Friday. Yeah, I can't believe y'all made those pizzas. That's nuts. How are things going for you up in Jersey? And we open up the conversation.
Of course. People are people. Yeah. No, that's great. Okay. Any last minute parting words or what's a good way for people to get in touch with you and learn about what you're doing and get involved in your world?
Yeah. Well, if they love podcasts, which I'm sure they do because they're listening to yours, mine is called Create Online Business Success.
Okay.
I would love for them to like it, follow it, subscribe to it, listen to all the episodes. If they love Facebook groups and they're an online entrepreneur, they're welcome to join mine. We have about 3,600 online entrepreneurs in my group. Okay. It's called Be a Confident Entrepreneur. Okay. And you can promote your offers anytime. You can ask for help. You can ask for feedback. It's a beautiful community.
Let me see if we have do we have a link in we have the Facebook group.
That's it.
Your personal LinkedIn. And what was the other one you mentioned about?
My podcast?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I have the show in here. So what's the name of the show?
Create Online Business Success.
Create Online Business Success podcast. And I'll find a link to it. We'll put it in the show.
Perfect.
In the show notes. All right. So I can't thank you enough. And you enjoy your day because it's raining here. I told you. Yes. And and let's definitely, I love staying in touch, especially with all the coaches and, hearing, sharing stories and ideas. And maybe at some point we should do like a big summit. And
that'd be fun.
I appreciate it. So hang out for the credits and then we'll wrap things up.
Thanks, Mitch.
In addition to being a podcast host, I'm also a small business attorney, mostly providing legal services in New York and New Jersey. At my firm, we help small businesses, entrepreneurs, family-owned businesses with things like contract drafting, corporate governance, purchases of businesses, sales of businesses, tax planning, real estate, and even estate planning. With over 3 decades of experience, we can handle most transactional issues. So if you're watching the show and you encounter some sort of legal issue, reach out to us. You can connect with us and visit our website, bindhackerlaw.com. There you can read our law blog, Insights legal blog, and you can set up a free consultation. If you want to connect, I'm on all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and the others. So as a lawyer, I'm here if you need me. As a podcaster, thanks for tuning into the show and for continuing to support us.